Music is Life podcast has our own merch now over on tpublic.com. Click the link below in the video description. Looking for some new threads? We got t-shirts, long sleeves, hoodies, crew neck sweatshirts, tank tops, baseball tees, and also clothes for kids and onesies for your little infant metalheads. Don't want clothes but love the Java? We got you covered with coffee mugs and travel mugs. Need protection for your electronics? We've also got phone and laptop cases. We've got everything you're looking for at the tpublic.com Music is Life podcast store. Use my link below for fast service. Thanks for your support. TerraNut is proud to offer you a natural nut bar chock full of healthy fats, minerals, and protein that meet your demands. Go to their website, www.terranut.com. You can order from them directly and they will ship it to you. Use my coupon code LUMAVS and you will get a 25% discount on your first order. TerraNut Superfood Snacks, www.terranut.com. Don't forget to use coupon code LUMAVS at checkout. Fuel your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, how do?
Music is Live podcast. This is your host, Lou Mavs. Check out everything you need to know about the show over at my link tree, Lou Mavs. And don't forget to subscribe on all social media platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. That's right. We're back after a long midlife crisis. I mean hiatus, because after writing and recording and releasing 2 albums with Severed Angel, I wanted to get back to talking about what I love talking about most, and that's music. Loud, obnoxious, in-your-face rock and roll, metal, and hardcore. And in my opinion, that's a compliment, especially when discussing my first guest in a very long time. A loud, obnoxious quartet out of Wisconsin playing rock and roll the way it's meant to be. In your face, take no prisoners, take no shit. I first became aware of the band Deathwish fairly recently with the release of their new album, The Fourth Horseman, on Beer City Records. Not realizing that these guys have been in the game over 10 plus years with releases such as Out for Blood and Unleash Hell. And this being full-length album number 3, these guys show no signs of slowing down. Equal parts Motorhead, Zeke, Venom, and classic crossover thrash, Deathwish is a force to be reckoned with. You can purchase their new album, The Fourth Horseman, over at beercity.com/bands/Deathwish. I'm proud to have my first guest in a long time from the band Deathwish, bassist and vocalist Biddy.
Hey, how you doing today? Good to see you.
Same here. Thank you for coming on board, and a big shout out to our mutual friend Munsey Ricci over at Skateboard Marketing for helping to set this up.
Hell yeah. Cheers, Munsey.
Cheers, Munsey. Really nice to meet you. I really dig the new album, The Fourth Horseman. And as I mentioned, this is your 3rd album. You guys were on Victory Records at one point?
Yeah, we were the last band that ever signed to Victory. So this record, originally, we fulfilled all our contracts for Beer City on the first 2 records. And then they sold out, so they did a reissue where they did a double LP called Rock and Roll's One Hell of a Drug with both records on limited color things. And they did 666 copies of that with the big Baphomet on it. And after that, yeah, we got called by Victory and they had us do a showcase. So we got in some place that holds over 1,000 people. There's 7 agents in the back of the room. We ripped through 3 songs and then you're done. And it took about a month or 2, and all of a sudden Tony Victory texted me and he's like, "Hey, you ready? You ready to get signed? Rock and roll." And then I wrote back, "Was One Hell of a Drug." So he gave us a $250,000 record deal for 4 records, and I was like, "Yeah, we're in. We'll totally do this." We went down there, signed the contracts, met them. Met all the people there. It was really good. Then what happened was during COVID, all of a sudden there was a $30 million buyout or $30+ million buyout where they Concord bought Victory. And since we were the last band signed, they were only looking like the big $1 billion company. Concord was only looking for the back catalog, not new bands. So they basically were going to skip, like, we could sue them if we wanted to, but our entertainment lawyer's like, well, then you can't use the band name and you can't play shows and you can't use your songs. Like, and at that point I was like, well, screw that. I'm not going to go down that road anyways. I want to play shows, and I don't want to get in some legal stuff that's kind of nonsense. So 6 months went by on the no compete clause, and then he started Mission 2 Records, and I got another text and from Tony, and hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to still do a record? Yeah. Okay, cool. Same record deal, same record offer. Everything was great. They put out a bunch of bands, and then they got right up to us. And actually, they put out, I think, the Chromags right before us, if I remember correctly. And like the newest last one they did. And then all of a sudden, like, our record is supposed to come out, and I get told, oh, we're putting you on hold until after COVID, blah blah blah. I call back 1 week later, and the entire record label shut down. It like imploded or something. And so then we went another full year, but our lawyer is like, our entertainment lawyer is like, call everyone and see who got paid. And then nobody had gotten paid yet. So we went and we bought everything.
You own the rights to your music.
Yeah, we own the rights to everything. So
that's like awesome.
And we also are now over the line. Like, we're already done with all the contracts. And so there's no problem going either direction with either people involved in all the record deals. So I just sent the link to Beer City Mike, because I was on tour with DRI, and we did 4 tours with him last year or something like that. And I was just like, hey, this is that new record that never came out. We're free and clear now, just so you know. And I sent it. And Mike wrote back. He's like, dude, this is the best stuff you guys ever done. I'll absolutely do this. I'm setting up a meeting as soon as you get off tour. And I was like, all right. And he put it out. It's a limited edition, different colors and stuff. The art, everything turned out. The recording's great. It's the sound tech from Max Cavalero, and now he's the sound tech for Municipal Waste. His name's Mark Burr. That's who recorded it. And then all our leads were recorded. That's at Carptown Studios. And then all our leads were recorded in Minneapolis, because that's where our guitar player lives, with Signature Tone recording studio with Adam Tucker. And then it got all put together. And then Joe Grind from Toxic Holocaust did the audio mastering. And it's one of the few records where everything on it now is exactly how I envisioned it. So I'm pretty happy.
Very cool, and no small feat. Congrats on reaching number 14 on the Metal Contraband charts. Shout out to Chelsea Fernandez, and being number 10 this week on the NACC Top 30 Heavy charts, which, for anyone out there who was in college radio, when I was in college radio, CMJ was the I guess you could call the Billboard of college radio charts, but now it's NACC. And, congrats on cracking the top 10 last week at number 9. So it looks like there's been nothing but positive response from college and community radio.
Yeah, I'm stoked. The stuff is all rolling. It's all going really well. We just got off a tour with DRI, and we just sold an endless amount of our merch. So the record, the CD, the shirt, everything was selling like at an extremely high level. So I was very happy, and I'm glad people are enjoying it, because that's the whole point of all this anyways. You create art because you have something inside you to drive you, and then you hope somebody will enjoy it, like, once it's completed.
It's definitely in my top 10 so far for 2024. So congrats on that.
Well, thank you.
You were on tour with DRI, though. You're not currently on tour right now?
No, I just got off tour with them.
Okay. How did it go?
Oh, it was amazing. We played the Gothic. I'm pretty sure it was sold out. It was just packed. That was in Denver, Colorado. And then we did like Boise, Idaho. I think we played Cheyenne. We played a record store that I don't think's doing shows anymore. But that was more like a DIY punk rock DIY thing. It was kind of cool to see DRI play that. And the place went fucking nuts. And they were cool, though, that there was like 2 or 3 people up front that like turned around and stopped the crowd from like knocking the mic into my teeth. But the place went completely crazy. And then like the Gothic was packed. And then that pit was like 300-400 people going completely nuts. And I was like, and the whole tour was fun. Every show was a banger. We had a blast. But we always have fun with DRI. They're great. They're like one of the funnest bands to tour with.
I believe it, definitely. So you mentioned before that you guys were sitting on the Fourth Horseman during the pandemic. So how long was the record actually completed before its release?
The record was completed 2 years before its release, maybe, just because we had so many hangups and we had to wait.
I believe it because I don't think anything really started opening up until 2022 anyway. And with everything that you were saying about the whole Victory Records being bought out by Concord and getting the rights back to your music, that's a long, arduous process. But at least you guys came out the victors at the end, no pun intended, on the Victory Records.
Third time's a charm.
So I'm from the East Coast, and I admit that my knowledge of the Midwest, particularly Wisconsin, is very limited with the exception of the Green Bay Packers, and I don't even like or watch football. And also pro wrestler Mr. Kennedy. AKA Mr. Anderson. What was the environment of Appleton, Wisconsin like that it molded Deathwish into the band that it became?
Well, it's kind of ironic you say that because I actually pro wrestled for a long time, and I was actually one of Mr. Kennedy's first trainers.
I recall you mentioning that on a previous podcast, Heavy Debriefings, which I suggest everyone out there go subscribe to his channel. He's got some good stuff.
Yeah, I wrestled. I stood up for his wedding. I stood up with like Matt Hardy and the Hurricane Shane Helms, and CM Punk was at it, and Hornswoggle was. I've wrestled Hornswoggle as well. I've wrestled Mr. Kennedy. I've wrestled Daivari. I've wrestled all those guys. I tagged with CM Punk for a short period of time. Like, I was very heavily into that. I'd say Wisconsin's most famous for the Packers, cheese, pro wrestling maybe, and serial killers, due to the fact that we have Dahmer and Ed Gein. But the funny part is the Wisconsin Chainsaw Massacre does not sound as good as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though the events happened in our state. But they're like, but Texas phonically sounds better. So they went with the much cooler sounding state.
I did not know that. Thank you for that history lesson. We both come from like similar backgrounds when it comes to music. I mean, growing up in New York, I went to CB's, I went to Continental. Unfortunately, I wasn't old enough to experience Lemoore East on Queens Boulevard, but I do remember Lemoore in Brooklyn, and there were some great shows that I saw there growing up. So, like, what was the environment of Wisconsin like that it influenced you to become a musician?
Well, basically, I mean, I came from a smaller town. There was like punk bands, and then I was already a skate punk by like 13, 14 years old. And I finally, one of my punker buddies is just like, hey, there's a show in Green Bay. And I'm like, okay, we actually saw Reverend Norb's band, Depo Bavera, play at it. And I had a blast. And I was a kid. We all went nuts. We all went crazy. And then after that, I just started going to shows all over the place and really, really enjoying it. Pretty much every band came through here. So it was, you name it, they came through here. And usually it was like on one of their first or second tours. So we only had to pay $5 to see all the big bands.
I did fail to mention, I apologize, there was the Milwaukee Metal Fest that would also occur in Wisconsin annually. And I think that was at a venue called, if I'm correct, The Rave.
Yeah, that was at The Rave. I was actually at one of those. And I walked up to Mad Dog Vachon and Butcher Vachon. And there used to be this secret pro wrestling handshake thing you would do. And they don't really do it nowadays. But I did it to them because I knew they would know what it was. And immediately the Butcher's like, who do you work for, brother? And he's like, get back here. Help the Mad Dog. I have help him do signing autographs. I have to go to the bathroom and get us some food. I go, okay. And I ended up hanging out with the Vachons for a while when I was at Metal Fest. We ended up playing. It was pretty awesome.
That is really cool. And rest in peace, Sika of the Wild Samoans. So,
yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, we're recording this episode about a day or two after his passing. So, it's nice to know that there's a fan of the old school like I am. And I think I recall you mentioning that ECW was your favorite league. That was my favorite league, too.
Oh, ECW back in the day. Not
the sci-fi one. The old school one.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments in wrestling was actually involves Raven. He got hired to work on a show that I was working on. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? And I was just like, well, I want you to get in the ring with Mr. Kennedy. We'll just call him Ken Kennedy for now, because any WWF person will know more as that than or Mr. Anderson. And I'm like, hey, cut him off after he's beaten on me. It was Adrian Serrano that was a UFC fighter. I think I wrestled him. And then one more villain ran in, and a babyface ran in, another villain ran in, which was Mr. Kennedy started pounding on me. And then in the Raven's music hits, Raven jumps in the ring. And I was like, grab him a front face lock and then like have him pancake and slide out of the ring. And I'm like, after that. And he's like, oh, and then he goes, what do you want me to do after that? And I go, well, pick me up out of the corner, face the hard cam, and raise my hand. And he's like, so you're going to use me to get your character over? Keep in mind, the whole locker room totally always wants me to be wrong somehow. So the whole locker room's going, oh, like I'm about to get in a lot of trouble with Raven here with Scotty Levy. And all of a sudden Raven turns around, looks at everybody, goes, that's exactly what he should be doing. That totally makes sense. I'm actually very impressed. Why are you guys all making moaning noises? And it was kind of like a small victory, but in my head, I was like, this is worth $1 million. And then I ended up seeing Raven at some Comic-Con convention or whatever, and I ended up making him like a punk rock jacket, me and my girlfriend at the time.
Cool.
And like a stuff fest that he was all excited about. He used to text me and be like, hey, come to the show, come to the back door. And I used to just hang out in the locker room with him, talk to him. He's great. He's got a really high IQ, like 142 or something like that.
I think he's a member of Mensa, yeah.
Well, yeah, we talked about that. My dad actually did pass the Mensa test and is a member of Mensa, and his IQ is 146. And Raven said they always talked about him being Mensa, but he actually never took the test. But he actually has an IQ of about 142, and he didn't realize that 140 and above, you're qualified to take the test. So he's more than qualified, so he would be Mensa if he took the test. You know what I mean? So that's where we connected, because I started talking about my dad. My dad was like this crazy guy that could I was a kid, and they gave us this is my first hint of what was going on. They gave us some crazy math equation. And they're like, you're going to get 100 points in class if you can get this right and figure this out. My dad looked at it and wrote down the answer. And I was like, you have to show the work. And he's like, I'm not writing out all that. Get your mom in here. And my mom's like a pretty intense Jewish lady. So he's like, but I mean, in her defense, she's like of average intelligence. You know what I mean? Like, she's normal. Okay. And he starts writing out and saying, this is how this sequence works. Keep writing this out. And she wrote it all out, pages, eventually came back to his number. And he knew it within like seconds, which was the craziest shit to me. I turned it in, and they actually said, this is bullshit. Like, well, how did you get the answer? No one else in all the schools that they did it in got the answer. And my dad just like smoked it in like 3 seconds. So like, I think that was like, going back to that, that's how me and Raven connected. And like, I got along with Scotty really well. And I worked with him. He was great. Great guy. Makes
sense. I never had the pleasure of meeting Raven. I did get to meet a lot of the other ECW wrestlers when they used to come to the Elks Lodge on Queens Boulevard. But, I've always thought Raven was incredibly useful and great when it came to booking, psychology, what to do in the ring, what not to do in the ring. And, you watch some of those old matches, and, he's got the crowd hating him. He's got the crowd rooting for, the face that he's fighting against, especially if it was Dreamer or Sandman. I mean, genius when it comes to booking.
He also, like, the night they crossed the line, and they always talk about it, is when he crucified Sandman. And it's funny that everybody got upset, and Kurt Angle like tried to walk out, and all these people freaked out. And then I was like, yeah, that's the same crowd that chants, she's a slut and she has herpes. I'm like, so magically, if you show a crucifix on your thing, they all fucking go quiet and like get really upset. And Raven was told, you got to go out there and apologize. So he's like, okay. So what does he do? He goes out on the mic and gives the most unapologetic apology ever, and has even more heat for the next show. And I was like, that shit was genius.
Yeah, no, I mean, and just hearing him explain it on the Forever Hardcore documentary, you know what? I mean, I'm Christian, and I wasn't offended by it. I'm like, it's a gimmick. It's supposed to be a storyline. Take it easy.
The silly part about it to me is the Undertaker crucified Austin.
Right
on the Undertaker level.
I remember that too.
They crucified Stephanie McMahon. Not one complaint out of any of those people that were all upset when the ECW did it. So it's almost like he like broke the glass ceiling on how offensive you can be. And then that was the big no, and he just did it. And it was super over. And the Sandman, like, I think he built it or whatever. So it's just like,
yeah, he's a carpenter.
Everybody was just like, screw it, it'll be awesome. It'll get a ton of heat. And it got a ton of heat. And then Raven made the most out of it as well by doing the standing in the crucifix stance all the time. Yeah, it was like all part of it to get over, and it got super over.
Well, that's kind of the business in a nutshell, you know, like the smaller organizations are the ones that do the revolutionary things, and then the big companies are the ones that steal it. You know, I mean, think about how many fluorescent light tubes are used in combat zone wrestling or even game changer wrestling. All of a sudden, we're seeing Nick Gage on AEW and death matches with fluorescent light tubes. Like, you know, I mean, not that I condone the violence of fluorescent light tubes, but I'm just saying, like, you know, yeah, you're upset when it's on a little rinky-dink show, but you know, all of a sudden it's on a grand stage like USA Network or TNT. It's like, oh yeah, we're fine with that. Give me a break.
Yeah, and that is the thing that happens. See, for me, I'm more of like you got to have a reason for stuff, and if you got a reason and the reason's simple and the person can understand it, that's way easier.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Raven went to high school with Beulah McGill. Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer was the big jock that she liked, and he was jealous that he could never like date the lady he wanted or the gal he wanted to date. So now they're older, and he's gonna get revenge, and he's playing the moody outsider that feels like he got rejected, so he's got an axe to grind. Like it's a real simple storyline. But I kind of like, my point would be this: if you're gonna have a cage, the whole point of the cage is to keep people out. That's the point of a cage. So when people just have a cage match, when there hasn't been any interference previous to this, it's goofy.
It is.
To me, I think you can tell stories using the same stuff and doing the same, like getting to the same place, but it should make sense in a very simplistic way where you do not have to explain this to the audience. And if the audience is not responding, you are not doing it correct. That is not the audience not getting it. That is you not doing your craft correctly.
I like the way you think. I appreciate that way of thinking. Well, it's cool to talk wrestling with a fellow musician. That's awesome. Oh, it just so happens that he, you know, is also schooled in pro wrestling. So bonus on you, sir.
Thank you.
I got to ask you, what were some of your favorite bands? I mean, I know DRI, who you went on tour with. I know you've said on heavy debriefings that you actually found your old DRI shirt in your basement. Well, who were some of the other bands that you were big on growing up?
Poison Idea. Like, I liked the early stuff, but the moment Fill the Darkness came out, that was a game changer. And like that's a huge influence on us. Motorhead, even before I got into punk, I heard Motorhead when I was young, and I was just like, this band's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I thought they rocked. And then like the Ramones, and then like I like one of the first other punk bands that weren't quite as known as I heard is TSOL, and I saw it in a Skateboard video. But I was also a skateboarder that got sponsored multiple times, and then I got a pro model out on Brand X skateboards. And I was so stoked because as a kid, they had the Anthrax skateboard, and now they have the Exodus skateboard as well. So I was like, to have an Eric Hammer, and it's called the Motor Shred skateboard in the Motorhead awesome name. And then it says Eric Hammer's on it. And I was just like, I ran the idea, but through Patrick Truitt, the guy who owns all the rights to all of it. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. He's like, will we get sued? I was like, no, because it's original art. I had an artist that did artwork for the skateboard company Creature, and then he does it for a lot of metal bands as well. And he hit it out of the park, and the skateboard sold tons. And I'm already out of them; they're already sold out.
Now, forgive me for asking. I don't mean for this question to be disrespectful or anything, so I hope it doesn't get taken that way. But with the skate culture that you're in, are we talking like pre Jeff Tremaine Big Brother? Like, are we talking like pre-Jackass?
We're talking way before that. I think I got lucky, and when I was about 13, 14, one of my buddies from a different city is like, hey, my uncle's the art director of Carcraft magazine. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go to California with me for summer for like 6 weeks straight? So my parents got on the phone with his parents and then talked to the uncle, and we flew out there. One of the guys that lived right behind him was like a skateboarder. I ended up going to, like, we took all the buses, and I went to Huntington Beach and skated with pros, and I I got really good once I was like live in person with all the pro skating. And I was out there. So I got really lucky, but we're talking like, what year would that been? I'd have been 14, like 1986. So like, yeah, like, so I was skating in like the golden age. And then I probably was no longer skating or only doing it here and there by the time you're talking Big Brother or any of that stuff.
Yeah, because I just think that sometimes people forget that there's a skate culture that was between Dogtown and Big Brother. So, and I think it's important to educate people that may not know because they just think, oh, CKY or Jackass, and that's where it all began. But, anyone who was involved in underground culture at all should know that that's not when it began. That,
Yeah,
skating was a big part of it.
I would say the Bones Brigade put everything on the map. And then cheap skates where you could get all your completes from like all the different big companies that existed at the time. And that was before like all the other people broke up into like all the little companies. And like so yeah, so I just like we went to punk shows, we skateboarded, we showed up at people's houses that had ramps, and they'd be like, yeah, come skate, hang out all day, do whatever the hell you want, it's great. And we'd always end up getting arrested skating someplace, like jumping fences in some city pool and skating the pool there. Next thing you know, the cops show up and are giving you fines and stuff. But I mean, that was like the glory days of skating. Like the boards were really big, they're cool, and I also feel that the boards were art. So that was another thing that I actually really enjoyed about them. Like I actually went to the turf before Wheels of Fire, Streets on Fire came out. So like I had skated the turf even way back then, and they had a skate shop inside there that was awesome.
Very cool. What I love about the Fourth Horseman, as I mentioned in my introduction, it kind of reminds me of like equal parts Motorhead, Venom, Zeke, who I feel gets incredibly overlooked, and the crossover thrash that I grew up loving from bands like Carnivore, Cro-Mags, and Agnostic Front. So I kind of want to get into your psyche a little bit when it comes to the songwriting process. Do you always have like a set style in mind of what you want all the music on the albums to sound like, whether it's just the songs themselves or the album as a whole? Because, I hear all three full lengths and, it definitely sounds like Deathwish, but one album, the new album doesn't sound like the previous one. And then that one doesn't sound like the first one. Like every one of them kind of has like their own original flair to it, their own original touch. So, and I think that's great because, I think the only band that's ever been able to, like, jokingly saying this, release the same album over and over again and getting away with it is AC/DC. But, there's not that problem of, repetitiveness with Deathwish. So, when it comes to writing songs, like, what's your process?
Well, I think I just got lucky because, like, I've been playing with Guinea Pig Champion for like 20 years, and he's like the riff master general. So he'll write a ton of different riffs, and I'll be like, I'll mark down this riff, this riff, this riff. Okay, we can put this all in this order. Then like I'll usually I'll actually write things out, and I don't write things out in musical formats because I don't know how to like read music, but I'll write it out in a mathematical equation like every single song. And then I map out an entire record. And then I'm like come up with it's all conceptual art. And then I use there's 7 points of writing theory in a pro wrestling match, which is 7 points of writing theory in a song. And then you have to modulate that as you go through a wrestling show. So not every match is the same, but you start with the concept of how humans intake information. You go from there. And so that's actually kind of what we do, where I'm the one that organizes the songs, and I write usually 14 titles down for song ideas. I already know what the concept it'll be. It'll be either something like I'm interested in, I'm inspired by, it actually happened to me, or it's kind of how I feel about things. Like it could be a multitude of things. And then we just go from there. And like Fourth Horseman turned out exactly the way I envisioned it. So I was extremely happy that it worked out.
What I love about it is the fact that, again, not knowing about the two previous releases and, listening to them after I listened to Fourth Horseman, and they're both great, but it's like when I heard Fourth Horseman, I was like, this is kind of like, I don't know if reawakening or reviving is the right word, but it sounds as good as like any debut album would be from like a new band. You know, it's refreshing. I think that's probably the word. It's probably an odd word, but it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think we evolve in reverse sometimes. Like originally I heard the band in Nepsi. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they're a Canadian band that kind of like we were Crust and they were Motorhead kind of combined. And their first record was Rock and Roll Babylon, and I saw them play, and I'm like, I want to do a band like this. At the time, I was in Wartorn. We got signed to Southern Lord. That was like when Probot was on there, and they did Shake Your Blood with Lemmy from Motorhead and Dave Grohl and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we were more like we were like a Wolf Brigade style band, like basically like Epic Crust with like metal leads and stuff. And then we wrote like the Iconic Nightmare was the last record we wrote, but I wrote that as well with Guinea Pig Champion. And then we just eventually I talked him into him like, hey, let's do this other band. Let's do Deathwish. And like, let's make it kind of Motorhead-ish, but not Motorhead. And let's add a little bit of Poison Idea and a little bit of GBH and like some metal. And we're down tuned to C. So it's like heavy sounding. And then eventually I got like with all the record deals and stuff, I got endorsed by Mesa Boogie. I got endorsed by Gibson. I got endorsed by like Heavy Hitter. I got endorsed by Skull Strings. You know what I mean? Like it just all escalated in one thing to another, to another, to another. And I think like everything is kind of interconnected, and it's all based on algorithms. So that's kind of where we did. And then whatever the result is, it's good to hear actually back from a person what they thought. Because you're explaining pretty much what I was shooting for, so that's good.
I do know that Jacob Bannon of Converge also has a label, Deathwish, and even I think Brock Lesnar was endorsed by a clothing line with Deathwish. I mean, was there any issue with like getting the trademark for the band?
I never worried about it, and this is why. Like, I didn't worry about it because Deathwish is a movie, so therefore
The Charlie Bronson film, yeah.
You know, Charles Bronson. That's where I got the name from. And I actually had never heard the British band Deathwish either. And like, I didn't know about the Deathwish record label at the time either. And like, so I just did it. When I looked it up, I looked bands and I was just like, oh, some band from like 81. That's metal from Britain. I've never heard of them. So that's fine. And ironically enough, or a happenstance, our first record debuted, and lo and behold, what happened? They re-released that record 30 years later, and both our records came out on exactly the same day on a record store day, and they both got voted on the list. And like 90% of our records had been sold out 30 days before the record even released. So we were on like a list with like Frank Sinatra and Metallica and like all this other stuff. And
when the label company,
we got like the best luck and the worst luck all at the same time.
But that's good company, Metallica and Frank Sinatra. I'd love to be up in those names, but that's cool. I did want to ask because, you know, as a fellow musician, I know that around New York, the venues around here are slim picking, and everyone's always like, you know, oh, you know, you got a tour, you know, we'd love to see you come to this place and that place. But, you know, logistics, modern day logistics for touring, you know, gas, lodging, and just making sure that, you know, the crew's taken care of, and, you know, paying for them. It's more pricier now than it was pre-pandemic. And again, the lack of venues has made it kind of difficult. So the question that I have is, with logistics nowadays being astronomical in comparison to back then, have you had to take a different approach to touring now, or is it not as bad?
Not really, because we were already doing the approach. Because the quote, the great Lemmy Kilmister, we are the road crew.
Who'd win in a wrestling match, Lemmy or God?
Lemmy. God.
Wrong, dickhead. Trick question. Lemmy is God.
I'm a fucking artist. I'm sensitive as shit.
So we set up all our own shit, and like I actually work our merch, and like I've been doing it forever and a day, and I have like an E350 Ford van that I got in 2007 that now has 360,000 miles of touring on it, and it's still the original engine, and it works like a top. It works great, and like I did have to buy a new trailer to fit all the gear in, but yeah, so. But yes, it cost us a shit ton more money after everything opened up. and the inflation was through the roof. Gas was what $9.80 on the West Coast, and I was normally it's like $4.50 or something, and I was like, what the hell? So yeah, did it cost us more? Yeah, but I mean, that goes back to like our song on the record, "Kings of the Road." We just ran up credit cards. Even if we max shit out, I'll be dead someday. So what do I give a shit? I want to go on tour.
I hear you. By the way, that one, Rainfire, and Mainline Rock and Roll, I have to say, are my 3 favorite songs off the album. Although I love the whole album. Do you have any fun tour stories from the recent tour with DRI or any past that you could be at liberty to discuss? Like any crazy or funny things you've experienced on the road?
We were on tour, and our guitar player got like kind of wasted. And next thing you know, like him and the drummer are outside the hotel room pretending to be Bigfoot or something. And they're wasted, and all the cops show up. There's like cops everywhere, and all them two with a cell phone making fake Bigfoot videos, which is like pretty entertaining to me. Where I was like, "What is going on?" When I walked outside. I mean, it's always some kind of adventure, some kind of goofy shit. Oh, here's a funny one. So our guitar player, we all slept in the van. I got too tired to drive. We pulled over. It was on an East Coast tour with DRI. We pull over. I don't remember what state we're in, Indiana, maybe Ohio, but I think Indiana. We pull into this like abandoned gas station next to a hotel, and we're actually in the abandoned gas station, like kind of driveway, or not driveway, but like back lot or whatever. And we're away from the hotel. So at like 7 a.m, all these cops show up, and they're just hammering on the door. And Guinea Pig Champion like opens up the door. He's like, "Can I help you?" And they're like, "Well, you realize if there's any complaints, you guys are going to get in trouble for being parked here and blah, blah, blah." And like, so Guinea Pig Champion's like, "Were there complaints?" And they're like, "Well, but if there is," and he's like, "So there weren't complaints?" And at this moment, our guitar player, K. Lexar Alter, wakes up out of a black and wasted, wakes up and goes, "Go F and die, you stupid pigs. I will kill every one of you." And like he was dreaming that like the cops were like fighting us in his dream. So he's coming out of a dream, and he talks in his sleep. So he's like screaming in his sleep, and the cops are like, "What the hell?" Immediately. We're just like, "He's just sleeping, sir, and he's a little bit drunk still. And this is why I'm driving, and I'm up in the front, like laid across all the seats." And I'm like, "We're not doing really anything." And like, I'm like, "He's just sleeping. Don't pay any attention to what he's saying." They were like yelling at us for a good 10 minutes. They finally chilled out and left. And then what happens? The guy from the hotel comes out and goes, hey, hammering on our door. "You need to get out of here." I'm like, "Dude, we're just parked. It's so we don't die." Like, isn't that a safety issue? Like driving while you're too tired?
Yeah.
Isn't that a thing you're concerned about? And he's like, "If you don't leave, I call the cops." And we're like, "Well, we already met them, so we'll be going." We've been introduced. We're good. We'll see you later.
Can't win. Oh, dear God.
And the weird part is he kicked us out of a parking lot that wasn't his. That's like, why does this guy care? Like, it's like, okay, well, whatever.
Oh my God. I'm sorry you experienced that, but thanks for sharing that story.
That's all right. I thought the whole thing was funny to myself. I just kind of, I was laying up in front laughing until the screaming went on. Then I poked my head up. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, officer. He's just drunk. Don't pay attention. Don't pay attention to all his death threats to you." So we all don't get pulled out of the car and beat.
Oh my goodness. Any aspirations or plans to tour overseas to promote the Fourth Horseman in areas such as like Asia or Europe or Australia?
Yeah, we've done Japan and we've done Europe and stuff. So we've toured a lot, but we're gonna like what we got to do though is our main guitar player, Guinea Pig Champion, is Canadian, and Canada has all these weird rules. Like, okay, so if you're Canadian, you live here. You have to know a Canadian that actually has a passport to fill out part of your passport papers for you to mail in and somehow get the stuff in Canadian so you can actually pay them so you can get a passport. It's actually a huge hassle. America, you can get a passport in like 2 seconds, and you can even pay extra money to get it even quicker. And then you'll have it for 10 years. And in Canada, it only lasts 5 years. And the last lady was a drummer from a different band called Murder Squad that I met in Canada. and she married one of my friends, and she was helping him out because she's Canadian. And she's like, "Oh, I don't have a passport anymore because I'm an American citizen." So as soon as we get all our stuff figured out on that, then yeah, of course, we'll tour everywhere.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be great to see you guys on stages like on Hellfest or even Wacken. Like that would be great.
That would be great.
I even know there's one band out here on the East Coast, the Ice Cold Killers.
Okay.
It's Joe, the bassist from Tension, a Long Island hardcore band. It's his new straight up old school punk band. And I think you guys would be a great fit for like an East Coast show. Would love to see that. Definitely check them out. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be into that. That'd be awesome.
Aside from what you mentioned about your guitarist from Canada working out the logistics to get his passports taken care of to tour the States or overseas, what does the rest of the year look like for Deathwish? And can we expect a new album in a quicker fashion?
Yeah, we'll get through this one, and then as soon as like we do, then we'll start working on the next one. And the thing is, like, we also already got offers to tour with DRI again next year, so we'll do that for sure. And then we're in talks with a bunch of different bands, and we'll see which ones we can have take us out and which ones like are cool with it and what we'll all do. But we toured, so I missed 4.5 months of like work last year, like where I was just on the road touring. So and then we did just get off a tour just now, and we're playing Motorfest 3 in Pittsburgh this weekend. So we're driving like 12 hours, like one way, headlining a fest, and then driving back right after it. And I'll be back at work on Monday. And then the only other thing we're doing is which is kind of funny, because then when you tour Europe, and especially if you tour the band from Europe, they're like, "Hey, we have a big drive tomorrow. You should get some rest. You guys got to go to sleep." And we're like, "Well, how far is the drive?" And they're like, "It's 4 hours. We're driving to a different country."
Okay.
Dude. And being an American, I'm like, dude, we already played Portland on a weekend. That was like 46 hours one way and 2 ice storms and 4 feet of snow like that. So I was like, 4 hours is like every drive we have to do in America, dude. And they're all like, "What are you talking about? You're going to a different country." I'm like, I don't think you realize how big our country is.
Seriously.
Like, a state's the size of your countries. So, and we do like all 48. So it's like, I don't know. Okay. I'm pretty sure we'll all be fine tomorrow morning.
Final question. If people want to find out more about Deathwish and support the band on the road, such as, look up tour dates or buy merch directly from you, where can they find you on the internet?
It's Eric Hammers on Facebook. And then if you're going to go on Instagram, and then it's like a black and white picture of me with a rocker hat on. It's a pretty easy one to find. And then it's _original_ Eric Hammers as one word. And then that's on Instagram. And you just add me on any of that stuff and write me. And then the other one is Deathwish Wisconsin on Facebook is our band page. And if you write that, I'll answer as well.
And they could also go to beercityrecords.com as well and buy merch from there as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can get merch from them.
Very cool.
And then you can get all our shirts and hoodies and whatever, patches, buttons, whatever you want from us, records, you name it. You can get anything from us.
Awesome. Well, if you ever make your way to the Long Island area, I know there's a great venue out here called Amityville Music Hall. They cater to like punk, old school, hardcore, and metal. So it'd be cool to see you guys out here. Definitely come and support.
Hell yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Awesome. Biddy from Deathwish, I want to say thanks for coming on to the podcast. I enjoyed the time that we spent together. It was a really fun conversation, and thanks for easing me back into the world of podcasting. This was a lot of fun, man. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Just remember, quitting's for losers and rock and roll's one hell of a drug.
I couldn't agree more. If you want to find out more about the podcast, check me out over my link tree. That's Lou Mavs. Also check out our parent network. That's Rat's Review, and check it out over at ratsaw.review.com. Also, don't forget Severed Angel. If you go to severedangel.com, you can pick up our first album, self-titled, with the 5 bonus tracks, the original singers that we released, and album 2, Skyward. We finally got CDs in stock. Okay. And again, thank you to Munsey and Skateboard Marketing for getting us to number 7 on Metal Contraband and number 25 on the NACC Top 30 Heavy. Munsey, thank you so much. So remember, that website is severedangel.com. And that's really all there is to it. Biddy from Deathwish, thanks again for coming on to the Music is Life podcast. And remember,
all right, thanks for having me.
And remember, all art is valid, and I'm back, bitches.
Hell yeah.
God bless us, everyone.